Welcome back to Lisa's Family Table. We're so excited to have you here today. This is one of my husband's favorite meals that I make. And I realize that with COVID and all the things happening in the world today, we don't always get to go out to dinner for those special meals. So this is an easy, simple, special meal that you can have at home with a lovely glass of wine, with you and your husband or that special someone in your life. And trust me, it'll be better than any restaurant you go to. Let's begin. So a few things on the recipe, and it's attached at the link below. This has also got some drama in it because we're going to flame the pan with some brandy. So a little booze is good. We've got some mushrooms. I typically like cremini mushrooms, but I wasn't able to find them. So these are button mushrooms and they're fine. The main thing with all the techniques that we like to show you on our channel is take them, make them your own, improvise. If you can't find the ingredient, you can do what I've done and adjust. And you need a little bit of parsley to just make it pretty because we do eat with our eyes, and I finally chopped that earlier. And some shallots. And if you're not familiar with shallots, they're from the onion family. They add that onion flavor without being overbearing. And then I diced some garlic. So this is 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. These were kind of smaller cloves, so I did 3. Okay, so we're gonna clean our mushrooms. These aren't too dirty. You don't really sink your mushrooms in water. They're like a sponge. They're gonna soak it all up. So you wanna take a damp towel and you just wanna clean the dirt off of it. If they're really super dirty, feel free to do so, but don't soak them. Just put them under the water, brush them, and get the dirt off of them. You can do this dish without mushrooms. So if you're not a mushroom person, I have met a rare few that don't like them. You can skip it and the dish is still great. I love to serve it with some roasted asparagus and some roasted fingerling potatoes. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut the stems off of these. And I do keep my stems. I use them when I make stock. This recipe calls for some box stock because I realize that not everybody wants to take the time to cook their own stock. I'm gonna use a stock that I made myself. But the reason I'm asking you to reduce an unsalted, again, everything unsalted here, because that way you can control the salt content in your food. The reason I'm asking you to reduce it is to give it a little richer flavor. So I'm just cutting the stems off, cleaning these up, and then I'm going to slice them up so that they're ready for me. I've got everything else prepped. And you can see I'm leaving a little substance to the mushrooms because as they cook down, you want them to, not disintegrate in your pan because the mushrooms will shrink. They have a lot of water in them. And we're gonna make a great pan sauce with these. And again, if you're not a mushroom person, the key to that is when we get to the pan sauce is just omit the mushroom part of the sauce. We're gonna remove these steaks from the bag. It's a cryovac bag. I pulled this out of my refrigerator an hour ahead of time to get them at room temperature. The thing I would say from a food safety perspective is don't leave a protein like this out of your refrigerator for more than 2 hours because bacteria will form, it's unhealthy. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn my pan on because I want it to be lightning hot. I really wanna get a good sear on these. And this is a real treat for us today because these are Wagyu New York strips from the butcher shop and they're gorgeous. I'm gonna show you some of the marbling on these. These are beautiful steaks. So look at the marbling. This is not gristle. This is beautiful fat. And when it hits that oil in the pan, it's just going to melt. The great thing with the butcher shop is they're a meat subscription service. You can order from them. They have such high quality products. This is an A5 Wagyu. I am gonna dry it off. If it's wet, it's just gonna steam and you're not gonna get a good sear. So you wanna make sure it's good and dry. I'm not putting my oil or my butter in the pan right now because I want that pan to get hot. If I put it in ahead of time, it's just gonna burn. You can see it's nice and dry now. Dry the sides too. Moisture is not your friend on getting a good sear on a steak. Okay, so we're gonna just put the LSR on both sides. And once I get that seasoned, we're gonna put some olive oil and butter and we're gonna do a quick sear on these, about 1.5 minutes on each side. And we're gonna let them rest in a plate while we bring together our pan sauce. You've seen I've been pretty liberal with most of my steaks. You don't need to be as liberal with this one because the steak's not that thick, number one. And we're gonna have other flavors here, but you definitely eat all sides of the steak. And so you wanna make sure and season all sides of the steak. I can feel that pan's getting nice and hot. Need a little bit more here. Just make sure you get the sides nice and coated. Oh, this is gonna be delicious. My pan is getting really, really hot here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm putting the olive oil first, because if I put the butter first, it's just going to smoke and burn. And I'm going to put some butter in, about a tablespoon of butter in there. And I'm going to swirl that around. Steak and butter, they love each other. You want to, this is unsalted butter. I've talked about the importance of using unsalted ingredients, and this is just another example of that. Okay, so now I'm turning my heat back up right before I put my steaks in. Okay, so my pan is scorching hot now. My butter and my olive oil are perfectly melted, and I'm going to be able to get a good sear. And you're going to want to hear that when you go in. And you usually lay the steak away from you when you're putting it in so you don't get spattered. Hear that sear? That's what you want to hear. It's a beautiful sound. Turning my temperature back up now because the steak will, lower the temperature in the pan. Okay, here we go. You can start to see the butter is caramelizing a little bit with the steak. That's what we want to look at. This is not one of those situations where you constantly move it, because we want the Maillard effect to come in place. That's where it's GBD, golden brown delicious. We want golden brown delicious. We don't want burnt. We don't want overdone. We just want a good sear. So in probably about 30 or 45 more seconds, I'll give that a turn. We'll get the other side done. And then we're going to put it on a plate and let it rest while we finish our pan sauce. You turn this and you can see, look at that. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. In the recipe, I call for a fillet. And the main thing is you want that fillet to be thinner, not pounding it thin. But you could buy a fillet, cut it in half, and then that would be the 2 medallions that you would serve for one person. You're looking at about 4 to 5 ounces per tenderloin to be cooked. I'm gonna put it up on its side a little bit. I'm gonna use my Girl Great thermometer here. I like this. It's got big numbers on it so I can see. We're going to cook it rare today, mainly because I think it's a crime to cook a Wagyu beyond that. But if you wanted to cook it a little bit more done, feel free to do so. And you always let any protein rest. I mean, I always let chicken rest. I let steak rest. What happens is the juice is going to run out of it and it's going to come back in. If you cut it right now, you're going to lose everything that you did to the steak. The steak's going to lose all of its juices, and it's not going to be nearly as juicy, and you could potentially make it actually dry. This probably you couldn't make dry, but it's not going to be nearly the quality of steak that you have here. This is a beautiful Wagyu, and we want to treat it with the respect that it deserves. So we're going to let that sit over here and rest. Okay, so now after we've just pulled those steaks out and they're resting and they look beautiful, we're going to go ahead and put some of our shallots in. And this is about 1 shallot. Shallots these days can either be really small or really big. So this would probably be a small shallot or half of a large shallot is the way I would probably think about that. It's hard sometimes to give recipes on these things because depending on the product you buy. So we just want this to kind of get a little bit translucent. I'm going to put the garlic in, but I don't want to put that first because it will burn. I'm going to put the stock over here. It's done. It's warm. It's already reduced. I'm going to put my garlic in. Okay. Saute that. Again, you have to be so careful with the garlic. It will burn. Okay. Then our mushrooms are going to go in. We're going to give it just a little bit of sprinkle of LSR because it's salted and it'll help bring out the water of the mushrooms. Probably a little bit more olive oil here. We're basically wanting to get these mushrooms where you get the water out of them and you get a little bit of a sear on them. It smells so good in here. I really wish you were here. The steaks are looking beautiful. I'm going to put them over here where you can actually see them. You can see the juices coming out of them. We're going to put them inside the sauce here, so it's going to be wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to put the brandy in. Very, 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 very important. Turn the stove off because you will burn your eyebrows off. So we're going to put the brandy in. I've turned my stove off. I'm gonna turn it back on when I wanna flame it. But here we go. I've also got a lighter here. If you're more comfortable with that, you can do that. I've got a gas stove here, so what I can do is I can move my spoon. I have flamed myself a little bit too much, so just go like that. There you go. And now it's burning the alcohol off. And it's adding a layer of flavor, which is just wonderful. Now you can see why this is one of my husband's favorites. He loves it. So the alcohol is off. Now, I've got to get some Dijon mustard. I forgot to get out of the fridge. And again, the exact measurements will be attached in the recipe below. So put some Dijon in there. Okay, stir that in. We're going to get our heavy cream. It's a rich dish. Okay, bring all that together. It's a beautiful color. And then I'm going to put my stock in. One of the things, like a lot of people ask me, what else can you do with the stock? You can put these in ice cube trays, and you'll have it then for, like, if you're making a sauce like this, you can just pull the ice cube tray, and you can have little ice cubes in your freezer of stock. I love doing that because sometimes I just need a little something to add, and it's super easy and convenient. Coming together beautifully. I'm going to taste it. Make sure, again, taste your food. That's why we keep these spoons next to the stove. It's delicious. And I'm going to show you our steaks. They've been over here rusting. They look gorgeous. You can see the juices that are coming out of them. I'm just going to put it in here for a second. Okay. And this juice, don't waste the juice. That's beautiful. Put it in there. Okay. Just turn it around a little bit. Let it get a little happy in the sauce. Okay. And because I was still rare enough on the steak, I can tolerate this. If you've overcooked your steak a little bit, you're worried about it, don't finish it in the sauce. Those are just little adjustments that you can make. They're easy to do. Recipes are meant to be adapted. Okay. These beautiful mushrooms. You can just imagine we had some pretty asparagus next to this. Be a beautiful dish. And as I mentioned before, you eat with your eyes, just a little bit of parsley. It's perfect. Perfect rare, I would say, which is the way you want to eat a Wagyu, right? You don't want to eat Wagyu well done. This is what you're looking for. What you see, this sauce right there, but you don't have gray here, you don't have it here. That's because you had it at room temperature. If you cook it long on one side or the other, you'll have gray around it, and that's not what you want. I really want you to taste this. I really wish you were here, but I'll have to do it for you. It's delicious. I'm going to take a mushroom and a piece of steak. Oh my gosh, so good. I'm just speechless. It's delicious. You really have to make this. It's wonderful. Once again, thank you for coming to Lisa's Family Table. That's Steak Diane, from our table to yours. I hope you have a romantic evening with your loved ones as well.